In a significant escalation, Russia has intercepted Ukrainian drones that have targeted the Moscow airport, halting flights. Russia has been unleashing drone swarms across Ukrainian cities, marking one of the most substantial aerial assaults since the war's inception. Now, this surge in drone activity underscores the intensifying technological war between the two nations. Our next report takes a look at these newer and deadlier kind of drones that are being used in the Ukraine war.
Tension crackles along Ukrainian front lines as the artillery thunders in the distance. Ukrainian soldiers have had their eyes fixed on the horizon for a new weapon looming over the fast-changing, brutal and terrifying battlefield. Russia has unleashed a new wave of warfare that is as devastating as it is unpredictable. Thermobaric drones. These aren't just ordinary UAVs, they are flying bombs engineered to generate massive pressure waves and searing heat that can turn concrete fortresses into dust and leave entire districts in flames. In recent weeks, Russia has launched barrages of over 200 drones in a single night, mixing in ballistic missiles and guided bombs to maximize the chaos. Kyiv has not been lagging behind either, using drones to devastating effect. The air traffic around Moscow was disrupted as the Russian capital came under attack from Ukrainian drones. These are images of a drone that landed near a school in the Russian capital. Ukrainian armed forces have designed a new drone to operate under the cover of night. Called the Vampire, it carries up to 15 kilograms of munitions and is highly effective against moving and static enemy targets.
Vampire drone is manufactured in Ukraine and therefore is not dependent on foreign parts and munition. Munition and parts for Vampire drone can be produced in Ukraine.
As Russia refines its tactics using swarms to drain defenses and real drones to strike vital targets, Ukraine scrambles to adapt. According to reports, US President Donald Trump told European leaders that Russian President Putin is unwilling to pursue peace because he is convinced that he is winning the war against Ukraine. Russia has dismissed claims from Ukrainian and European officials that it is intentionally stalling the peace process. It says it plans to propose its conditions for a ceasefire, but declined to give a time frame. Bureau Report, WION The World.
And also to help make sense of what is happening at this moment in the Russia-Ukraine war, we joined this broadcast by retired Admiral Michael Rogers, who is a former director of the National Security Agency and also a former chief Central Security Service. Admiral Rogers, thank you very much indeed for joining us here on this broadcast and beyond. And let me in fact start off by asking you this. You know, the fact that this Russia-Ukraine conflict has now become such an intense confrontation of drones, where these new kinds of drones are being used by the Russians, these thermobaric drones. In your assessment, do you think this is what has been giving the Russians the edge, considering the new kind of weaponry that they're able to field as this war has evolved?
I wouldn't say that it's giving the Russians the edge, but I would say the Russians increasingly view drones, ballistic missiles, new advancements in munitions and bombs as the primary way for them to overcome the fact that on the battlefield itself, they have been unable to achieve strategic advantage over Ukraine.
Interesting you say that they haven't been able to gain strategic advantage. A lot of people would in fact turn around and say that in the naval war which had been ongoing, the Ukrainians were able to in many ways destroy a lot of the Black Sea fleet of the Russians. But on the ground, though, it is the Russians who seem to have a clear advantage, as they seem to be progressing, even though the West had been giving weapons to the Ukrainians.
So it does appear that on the ground, the Russians are making progress. Now, it's very slow, but it does appear as if incrementally they have been able to achieve some measure, but not at a strategic level, which is why I say I think the Russians have viewed drones increasingly as a vehicle to have that kind of strategic impact, to project force much deeper into Ukraine, to put at risk populations, targets, infrastructure, and military capabilities much deeper into Ukraine. And drones let them do that.
And my final question to you is a political one. Now, Donald Trump had always been saying that he can, in fact, bring an end to the Russia-Ukraine war immediately as soon as you take charge of the White House. But what we've been hearing from Trump of late, since he's had that phone call with Vladimir Putin, where he's now said that probably Putin is not interested in negotiations for peace because he believes that he's winning on the battlefront. In your assessment, will the American approach under Donald Trump now change towards the Ukraine war?
So the short answer is I don't know. But I think clearly the assessment that the Russians were inclined to actually try to end the war right now through some sort of ceasefire and then negotiated settlement, I think what we're seeing is that is not in fact the case right now. The Russians aren't there. And it's not by chance that the Russians launched the day before, on Sunday, they launched the greatest drone numbers that they'd done in the entire war. And that was the day before the phone call between President Trump and Prime Minister Putin.
All right, we'll have to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed, Admiral Rogers, for joining us with that perspective there.
Thank you.
For all the latest news, download the WION app and subscribe to our YouTube channel.